Alan Miller opened his eyes slowly. A bright blue light shined above him. His body felt cold and stiff. He couldn't remember where he was or how he got there. The metal lid of his sleep pod slid open with a hiss. "Commander Miller, welcome back to the living," said a soft female voice. Alan tried to speak, but his throat was dry. He coughed and reached for the water tube that extended toward his face. After a few sips, he found his voice. "Diana? Is that you?" he asked, recognizing the ship's artificial intelligence. "Yes, Commander. I have maintained systems during your sleep. The time has come, as was planned." Alan sat up slowly. His muscles ached from not being used for so long. The revival bay was dimly lit, with rows of sleep pods stretching into the darkness. Most were still closed. In one pod nearby, a status light had turned from red to green. "How long?" Alan asked, though he already knew the answer. The mission parameters had been clear. 500,000 years, Commander. Just as Admiral Wright programmed, Earth has been without humans for exactly that long. The Zarelian victory celebration is 3 months from now. Alan stepped out of his pod, his legs weak. He steadied himself against a metal rail and looked around. The ship, the Vengeance, Dawn, was one of 30 vessels hidden throughout the solar system. This one had been buried deep within Pluto's icy surface, hidden from all sensors. "Show me," he said. A large screen lit up on the wall. It showed images of Earth from a distance. The planet looked different. The continents had shifted slightly. There were massive structures visible from space, monuments built by the Zarelians to mark their victory over humanity. "They think they killed us all," Alan whispered. "They've been thinking that for 500,000 years. "Correct," Diana replied. "The Zarelian Empire now spans 3 galaxies. Earth is preserved as a monument to their greatest conquest. They celebrate the anniversary every 1,000 years. This year marks 500,000 years since what they call the Purification. All 3 ruling Zarelian factions will gather at Earth." Alan walked to a nearby pod where the green light blinked. The fog on the small window cleared, revealing the face of a woman with dark hair. "Begin revival sequence for Lieutenant Olivia Martinez," he ordered. "Already in progress," Diana said. "I have also initiated wake-up procedures for Jones, Clark, and Taylor. As per protocol, they will wake in sequence." Alan moved to a viewing port and looked out at the blackness of space. Somewhere out there was the once blue planet that had been his home, the home of all humans. Now it was nothing but a trophy for the aliens who had destroyed his species, or so they thought. "What is the status of the other vessels?" he asked. 27 of 30 ships remain in optimal condition. 2 suffered minor damage from meteor strikes over the centuries. 1, the Justice Light, experienced a critical power failure approximately 50,000 years ago. Alan nodded. 29 ships against an empire spanning multiple galaxies. It seemed impossible. But that was the point. No one would expect an attack from a species believed extinct for 500,000 years. The pod next to him opened with a hiss. Olivia Martinez blinked in the low light, her eyes adjusting after 500 millennia of darkness. "Commander?" she said, her voice hoarse. "Did it work? Are we really here?" "It worked, Lieutenant. Diana kept us safe just as planned." Olivia sat up slowly. 500,000 years, she whispered. "Everyone we knew, everyone who ever lived, is counting on us to remember them." Alan finished for her. He helped her out of the pod. "You're the best engineer humanity ever produced, Olivia. I need you at your best." 3 more pods opened nearby. Peter Jones, the tactical specialist, emerged first. His large frame made the pod seem small. He was followed by Science Officer Daniel Clark, whose thin face looked even more gaunt after the long sleep. Last was Grace Taylor, the medical officer, her red hair contrasting with her pale skin. "Brief them," Alan ordered Diana. "I want everyone up to speed within the hour." The AI displayed holographic images showing the current state of the solar system. The 5 humans watched as Diana explained how the Zarelians had changed over the centuries. They had grown complacent in their dominance. Their once unified empire had split into 3 competing factions. "This is our advantage," Alan said, pointing to the display. "They fight among themselves. They've forgotten to fear external threats, and they certainly don't fear humans." "But sir," Daniel said, his scientific mind already working on the problem, "they must have advanced their technology significantly in 500,000 years. Our weapons may be useless against them. That's why we won't attack directly," Alan explained. "Not yet. First, we gather intelligence. We learn their weaknesses. We adapt our technology. Then we strike when they least expect it." Peter Jones studied the tactical display. "The Jupiter shipyards look vulnerable. Minimal security, high-value target." "Agreed," Alan said. "Our first mission will be reconnaissance. We need to know what we're up against before we engage." Grace Taylor was checking the medical readouts on each crew member. "Everyone seems stable, but there might be long-term effects from such extended cryosleep. We're the first humans to ever sleep this long." Alan nodded. "Monitor our condition closely. We'll need everyone at full strength." Over. The next few days, more crew members were awakened. Engineers checked systems. Weapons were tested. The Vengeance Dawn slowly powered up, careful not to emit signals that might be detected. Diana showed them recordings of Zarelian broadcasts. The aliens looked different than they had 500,000 years ago. They had evolved, changed, but their arrogance remained the same. In 3 months, Alan told his assembled crew of 50, "They will gather at Earth to celebrate our extinction. They believe they erased humanity from existence. They're wrong." He looked at the determined faces around him, the last humans in the universe, preserved through time for this single purpose. "We are Operation Phoenix. When Admiral Wright created this mission, many said it was pointless, that revenge after so long would be meaningless. But we're not just fighting for revenge. We're fighting for the memory of every human who ever lived, for Earth, for the future that was stolen from us." Alan turned to the view screen showing Earth in the distance. "We were not the ones who started this war, but we will be the ones to finish it." The Vengeance Dawn silently detached from its hiding place within Pluto's ice. 28 other ships throughout the solar system did the same. The hidden fleet of humanity began to move, awakening from its long sleep. The revenge 500,000 years in the making had begun. 6 months passed since the crew of the Vengeance Dawn had awakened. The human fleet hid in the shadows of the Kuiper Belt, beyond the reach of Zarelian sensors. From this safe distance they watched and learned. Alan sat in the command chair, on the bridge. Screens around him showed images captured by their stealth probes. The solar system had changed in 500,000 years. Mars now had rings, likely debris from mining operations. Venus had massive floating cities in its upper atmosphere. Jupiter's moons were covered in Zarelian shipyards and military bases. And Earth. Earth was different most of all. The blue planet was now more brown and gray, with enormous stone monuments visible from space. The Zarelians had turned humanity's homeworld into a shrine to their victory. "Commander," Laura Williams called from her station, "the stealth team has returned from Proxima Centauri." Laura was the captain of their smaller scout ship, the Silent Arrow. Her mission had been dangerous but necessary, traveling to what had once been humanity's first colony world to gather intelligence. "Bring them to the briefing room," Alan ordered. 10 minutes later, Laura and her team sat around the table with Alan and his senior officers. The scout team looked tired but excited. "The disguises worked perfectly," Laura explained. "The holographic technology made us appear as Zarelian traders. No one questioned us." She activated a display showing the data they had stolen from the Proxima Centauri archives. "The Zarelian Empire is not as united as they want everyone to believe," she continued. "They've split into 3 main factions. The Dominion faction controls Earth and most of the solar system. The Progressive faction rules most of what used to be human colony worlds. The Traditional faction holds their original home systems." Peter Jones studied the military information. "They fight among themselves frequently. Border skirmishes, trade, disputes, political assassinations. Their military is spread thin. Daniel Clark, the science officer, pointed to another section of data. There's something else, something unexpected. He brought up biological scans on the main screen. These are Zorellian genetic profiles from the past 500,000 years. Everyone leaned forward to look. I don't understand what I'm seeing, Alan admitted. Human DNA, Daniel said simply. They have human DNA in their genome. It starts appearing about 10,000 years after our supposed extinction, and it increases over time. Today's Zorellians are approximately 18% human, genetically speaking. Silence fell over the room. That's impossible, Grace Taylor, the medical officer said finally. They killed all humans. Apparently not, Daniel replied. Either some survived or the Zorellians kept some alive for experimentation. Either way, they've been breeding with human genetic material for hundreds of thousands of years. Alan felt sick. The enemy they had come to destroy was partly human. There's more, Laura said, breaking the uncomfortable silence. We intercepted communications about an upcoming celebration on Earth. They're marking 500,000 years since the purification of the planet. All 3 faction leaders will be there, including Supreme Overseer Kralthax. She showed an image of a tall Zorellian with gray-green skin and ridges along his skull. His eyes were large and black, but the shape of his jaw showed hints of human influence. Kralthax is a direct descendant of the commander who led the attack on Earth, Laura explained. His presence at the celebration is meant to reinforce his faction's claim to Earth. Alan stood and walked to the viewport. The distant sun was just a bright star from here. Somewhere near it was Earth, the home they had all lost. Does this change our mission? Olivia asked quietly. If they're part human, they still destroyed our world, Peter said firmly. They still wiped out billions of people. Some genetic mixing doesn't change that. Alan turned back to face his crew. We need more information before we decide our next move. We've been watching long enough, it's time to test their defenses. The Jupiter shipyards, Peter suggested. We discussed this before. It's a valuable target, but not so important that all their forces would respond. Alan nodded. A perfect test. We hit them fast, we hit them hard, and we see how they react. We can also capture some of their current technology to update our own systems. My engineering team is ready, Olivia said. We've been studying what we could from a distance. We can adapt quickly once we have actual Zorellian tech to work with. Alan looked at each face around the table. I know this mission has become complicated. We woke up expecting a clear enemy. Now we find they're partly human. But remember what they did. Remember why we're here. He activated a hologram showing Earth as it once was. Blue oceans, green, and brown land masses, white clouds swirling in the atmosphere. This is what we're fighting for. The memory of our home. The billions who died. If we do nothing, their sacrifice means nothing. The officers nodded in agreement. Prepare the fleet, Alan ordered. We attack the Jupiter shipyards in 3 days. The meeting ended, and the officers returned to their duties. Alan remained in the briefing room, studying the image of Supreme Overseer Kralthax. The alien leader had hints of humanity in his features, yet had built his power on celebrating the destruction of the human race. Eric Johnson, the fleet communications officer, entered the room. Commander, I've been monitoring their transmissions. There's something you should hear. He played an audio recording. A Zorellian voice spoke in their clicking, hissing language. Diana, the ship's AI, translated, "The purification of Earth was our greatest achievement. 500,000 years ago, we removed a cancer from the galaxy. Humans were violent, unpredictable, dangerous. Had we allowed them to spread, they would have destroyed everything in their path. We did not just save ourselves. We saved the galaxy." Alan switched off the recording. They really believe that, don't they? That they were right to kill us all. It seems so, sir, Eric replied. Their historical records paint humans as monsters. Then they've created a self-fulfilling prophecy, Alan said quietly. because now we've come back as the monsters they feared. 3 days later, the human fleet moved into position near Jupiter. Their engines were cold, their systems running silent. They drifted toward the massive shipyards that orbited the gas giant. The Zarelian facilities were impressive. Space docks large enough to build vessels 10 times the size of the largest human ships. Defense platforms floated at strategic points, but they were minimal. The Zarelians had no reason to heavily defend against enemies that didn't exist. Alan stood on the bridge of the Vengeance Dawn, watching the final preparations. His crew worked with focused determination. "All ships report ready, Commander," Eric announced. Alan nodded. The moment had come. After sleeping for 500,000 years, humanity was about to announce its return. "Send the signal," he ordered. "All ships, weapons hot. Begin the attack." Across the darkness of space, 29 ships that should not exist powered up their weapons. The revenge of a dead species was about to begin. The human vessels struck without warning. Energy beams sliced through the darkness of space, hitting the Zarelian shipyards before their sensors even detected a threat. The first shots disabled communication arrays. The second wave targeted defense platforms. By the time alarms sounded across the Zarelian facilities, half their defenses were already gone. On the bridge of the Vengeance Dawn, Alan watched the attack unfold. The Zarelian response was slow and confused. After 500,000 years without facing humanity, they had forgotten how humans fought. "Their ships are moving to defensive positions," Peter reported from the tactical station. "But they're using predictable patterns, standard Zarelian formations. Target their engine cores," Alan ordered. "Disable, don't destroy. We need their ships intact for study." The human fleet moved with precision that shocked the defenders. While Zarelian warships tried to form a defensive line, smaller human vessels slipped past them, targeting specific systems rather than attempting to destroy the enemy ships outright. "Commander, we have an opening to the main command station," Laura called out. "Permission to lead the boarding party?" Alan shook his head. "I need you here. Lieutenant Harris will lead the boarding team." Kevin Harris stood from his station, already suited up in combat armor. The tall, broad-shouldered man had been training his team for this moment since they awoke. "We're ready, sir," he said confidently. "Get us close enough to dock, and we'll handle the rest." 5 minutes later, Kevin and his team of 12 soldiers magnetically attached to the hull of the Zarelian command station. They cut through an outer airlock and entered the facility. The interior was larger than human designs, with high ceilings and wide corridors built for the taller Zarelian physique. "Move quickly," Kevin ordered over the team's comm system. "Main, control room should be 3 levels up. Download everything, then grab whatever portable tech you can carry." The team encountered scattered resistance. Most Zarelian personnel were not soldiers, but technicians and engineers. Those who fought were quickly stunned by human weapons designed to incapacitate rather than kill. In the main control center, Kevin's team found 5 Zarelians trying desperately to coordinate a defense. One stood out from the others, taller, with ornate armor and the bearing of someone used to giving orders. "Secure the room," Kevin ordered. His soldiers moved efficiently, stunning 4 of the Zarelians. The leader reached for a weapon, but Kevin was faster. The stun beam hit the Zarelian in the chest. He stumbled, but didn't fall. "Increase power," Kevin ordered. A second shot brought the alien to his knees. "You," Kevin said, pointing to his tech specialist. "Download everything. Ship designs, defense codes, communication protocols. Everything." "Yes, sir," the technician replied, connecting devices to the Zarelian computers. Kevin approached the Zarelian leader, who was now slumped against a console, partially conscious. The alien's eyes widened as Kevin removed his helmet, revealing a human face. "Impossible," the Zarelian whispered in his own language. Diana translated through Kevin's earpiece. "Your kind was erased from existence." "Not all of us," Kevin replied coldly. "We've been waiting for a very long time." Back on the Vengeance Dawn, Alan watched as Kevin's team returned with their prize, complete data files from the command station and a Zarelian officer. "Sub-Commander Zex Veller," Diana announced after scanning the prisoner. third in command of the Jupiter Defense Force, Dominion faction. The Zarelian was secured in a medical bay, where Grace Taylor monitored his vital signs. "He's stable," she reported. "But his neural patterns are unusual. I'd like to perform a deeper scan." Alan nodded. "Do it. I want to know everything about our guest." Throughout the solar system, news of the attack spread quickly. Zarelian emergency channels buzzed with confused reports. Some claimed unknown aliens had attacked. Others suggested pirates or rebels from one of the competing factions. "No one's suggesting humans," Olivia noted as she listened to the intercepted communications. "They don't even consider it a possibility." "Good," Alan said. "Let them guess. The longer they remain confused, the better for us." In his private quarters, Alan reviewed the data stolen from the command station. The Zarelian Empire had indeed grown vast, spanning multiple galaxies. Their technology had advanced in some areas, but stagnated in others. Most interesting were the historical records. The Zarelians repeatedly referenced the Great Purification, their term for the destruction of humanity. It was celebrated as the moment their civilization truly began its expansion. A chime at his door interrupted his reading. Grace entered, looking troubled. "You need to see this," she said, handing him a datapad. "I completed the neural scan of our prisoner." Alan looked at the results, but the medical information meant little to him. "Explain." "Zarelian brains don't work like ours," Grace began, "but they should be completely alien. These scans show neural pathways that are human-like, not just similar, identical in some regions." Alan looked up sharply. "What are you saying?" "They didn't just take our DNA," Grace said quietly. "They took our minds. Somehow they extracted and preserved human consciousness, incorporating it into their own species." Alan set down the pad. "Are you telling me they have human thoughts? Human memories?" "Not complete memories, no. But patterns, ways of thinking, creativity, problem-solving, the very things that made humans dangerous to them. They took those things and made them their own." The implications were staggering. The Zarelians hadn't just killed humans, they had stolen the essence of humanity itself. "Does the crew know?" Alan asked. "Not yet. Just me and Daniel so far. He's running additional tests to confirm." Alan turned to the viewport, looking out at the stars. "Keep this quiet for now. I need time to think." After Grace left, Alan called an emergency meeting of his senior officers. They gathered in the briefing room where Peter Jones was already presenting the results of the attack. "Complete success," he reported proudly. "We destroyed 27 defense platforms, disabled 15 ships, and captured critical data. Our losses were minimal, minor damage to 3 vessels, no casualties." "The Zarelians are scrambling," Laura added. "Their response is disorganized. The 3 factions are blaming each other for the security breach. They're also rushing to protect Earth," Eric said. "Supreme Overseer Kralthax has ordered additional ships to guard the planet during the upcoming celebration." Alan listened silently, then stood. "There's something you all need to know." He explained what Grace had discovered about the Zarelian. "Neural patterns. So they're not just part human physically," Daniel concluded. "They're part human mentally as well." "They stole everything from us," Peter said angrily. "Our world, our future, even our minds. That makes our mission more important, not less." Olivia looked troubled. "But if they think partly like us, are they still the same enemy?" "It doesn't matter," Laura argued. "They still celebrate our destruction. They built monuments to our extinction." The room grew tense as opinions divided. Some saw the neural discovery as further justification for revenge. Others wondered if it complicated their mission. "Enough," Alan said finally. "Our next objective remains the same. We continue to gather intelligence and prepare for our main target, the Earth celebration. But now we have a new question to answer. If the Zarelians carry human consciousness within them, what happens when we complete our mission? Will we be destroying the last remnants of humanity?" No one had an answer. The meeting ended with a heavy silence. In the medical bay, the Zarelian prisoner watched Grace work. His black eyes followed her movements with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Why did you come back?" he asked suddenly in broken human language. Grace looked at him in surprise. "You speak our language?" "Old language, sacred language. From before the Ascension." "Ascension?" The Zarelian touched his head. "When we became more. When we took the best of the removed ones." Grace realized he was referring to the neural integration of human consciousness. "We came back," she said slowly, "because you tried to destroy us." The Zarelian's face showed confusion. "Not destroy, improve, make better." As Grace stared at the alien, she wondered how much of humanity might still exist within the very species they had come to eliminate. The Vengeance Dawn moved silently through space, approaching the blue-brown sphere that had once been Earth. After their successful attack on the Jupiter shipyards, Alan had ordered the fleet to split up. Most ships remained hidden in the outer solar system. Only his vessel and Laura's smaller Silent Arrow made the dangerous journey to humanity's former home. "Entering Earth orbit," Eric announced from his station. "Stealth systems functioning at maximum efficiency. No sign they've detected us." Alan stood by the main viewport, staring down at the planet where he had been born 500,000 years ago. Earth looked different now. The continents had shifted slightly. What had once been green forests and blue oceans was now mostly brown and gray. Massive Zarelian monuments rose from the surface, visible even from orbit. "Scans show heavy Zarelian presence," Daniel reported. "Most concentrated in what used to be the northern hemisphere, less activity in the southern regions." Alan studied the scan results. "There," he said, pointing to a location in what had once been North America. "That area shows minimal Zarelian development. It's a good landing zone for our team." "Are you sure about this mission, sir?" Laura asked quietly. "Going to the surface is risky." "We need to see Earth with our own eyes," Alan replied. "Not just from orbit. We need to know what they've done to our home." 4 hours later, Laura guided a small shuttle through Earth's atmosphere. Inside were Alan, Daniel, Grace, and 2 security officers. They wore adaptive suits that would shield them from detection and protect them from Earth's changed environment. The shuttle landed in a rocky valley surrounded by dead, twisted trees. The team exited carefully, weapons ready. The air was breathable, but had a strange smell, metallic and artificial. "This way," Alan said, consulting a small device. "There's something strange about 2 kilometers east. The scans can't identify it." They walked in silence through the barren landscape. Earth felt wrong under their feet. The soil was too hard, the plants too sparse. Occasionally, they passed small Zarelian markers, metal posts with symbols etched into them. "Boundary markers," Daniel explained. "They're labeling different zones. This area is marked as historical preservation." "They're preserving our extinction," Laura said bitterly. After an hour of walking, they reached a cliff face that looked unnatural. It was too smooth, too precise. "It's artificial," Daniel confirmed, after scanning it. "There's a hollow space behind it. Can we get in?" Alan asked. Daniel nodded. "There's a hidden mechanism here." He pressed several spots on the rock face in sequence. With a low rumble, a section of the cliff slid open. They entered cautiously, weapons raised. Inside was a dark corridor that sloped downward. Their suit lights revealed walls made of old human concrete, cracked but still solid after 500,000 years. "This is human construction," Grace whispered. From before the fall, the corridor led to a large chamber filled with dust-covered objects. Tables, chairs, old computers, all recognizable as human technology. "It's a bunker," Alan realized. "A survival bunker." Daniel examined the old computers. Some of these still have power, extremely low but active. They must have had some kind of self-sustaining energy source. "Can you access them?" Alan asked. Daniel nodded. "It might take time, but yes." While Daniel worked on the ancient systems, the others explored the bunker. There were living quarters, storage rooms, and a central command area. Everything was preserved as if the occupants had only recently left. "Look at this," Grace called from a side room. The others joined her, Room was filled with small containers, each labeled with human writing. Next to them stood medical equipment. It's a genetic repository, Grace explained, her voice filled with awe. DNA samples, thousands of them. But who built this? Laura wondered. And why wasn't it found by the Xerelians? I think I can answer. That, Daniel called from the command center. I've accessed their logs. They gathered around as Daniel activated an ancient screen. It flickered to life, showing a recording. A woman in a uniform appeared. She looked tired but determined. This is Admiral Susan Wright recording this message for whoever might find this sanctuary. If you're seeing this, then Operation Phoenix has either succeeded or failed. Either way, you should know the truth. Alan gasped. Admiral Wright, the same person who had created their hidden fleet. The recording continued. The sanctuary was built in secret, even from our own government. While the fleet was our sword, this place is our seed. Here we've preserved the essence of humanity, our genetics, our knowledge, our art. The Xerelians cannot detect it because we use their own technology against them. Stealth systems, we captured early in the war. Admiral Wright's expression grew sad. And now the truth that few knew. The war with the Xerelians. We started it. Humanity fired the first shot. We destroyed a peaceful Xerelian colony after misinterpreting their intentions. A shocked silence fell over the group. Earth's government knew the truth but continued the war out of pride and fear. The Xerelian response was severe but came. After multiple human attacks, I created Operation Phoenix not just for revenge but as a failsafe. A chance for both species to understand each other, after centuries had cooled the passions of war. The Admiral looked directly into the camera. The last of us took refuge here. We survived for generations, hidden from Xerelian patrols. Eventually, some of us made contact with sympathetic Xerelians. Instead of fighting to the bitter end, we chose a different path. The recording ended, but another began automatically. This one showed a different person, a man with gray hair. This is Dr. John Baker, last human leader of the sanctuary. Today, we make our final recording. Our children have chosen integration with the Xerelians who have protected us. Through controlled genetic merging, humanity will survive. Not as a separate species, but as part of something new. Perhaps this is not what our ancestors wanted, but it is what will ensure our legacy continues. The recording ended. The team stood in silence, trying to process what they had learned. We were wrong, Grace finally said. About everything. The war, the Xerelians, our whole mission. It changes nothing, Laura argued. They still destroyed Earth, killed billions. After we attacked them first, Daniel pointed out. And some humans survived, chose to join them. Alan walked back to the genetic repository room, looking at the thousands of preserved samples. Admiral Wright built our fleet for revenge, but she also built this sanctuary for survival. She gave us a choice. Their conversation was interrupted by a sound from the bunker entrance. Someone, or something, was coming in. They quickly took defensive positions, weapons ready. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, too many to count. Then figures appeared in the entrance to the main chamber. Xerelians, at least 20 of them armed but not firing. At their head stood a female Xerelian with ornate armor and intelligent eyes that seemed almost human. I am Sub-Commander Teg Varla, she announced in perfect human language, daughter of Zexveller whom you captured at Jupiter. She looked around the sanctuary, her expression unreadable. You have found the birthplace, the place where our peoples began to merge. Alan stepped forward, his weapon lowered but ready. How did you find us? We have always known about this place, Teg Varla replied. We protect it, honor it. Some of us, my faction, believe the future lies in acknowledging our shared heritage, not denying it. She studied the humans carefully. You are the sleeping fleet, the vengeance that was promised. We have stories about you, warnings passed down through generations. Alan looked at his team, then back at the Xerelian commander. The mission that had seemed so clear now felt hopelessly complicated. They had come for revenge against monsters who had destroyed humanity. Instead, they found that humanity had fired the first shot, and that human essence lived on within the very beings they had come to destroy. "We need to talk," Alan said finally. "About what really happened. About what happens next." The celebration began in Earth's orbit. Hundreds of Zorelian ships gathered, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. On the largest vessel, Supreme Overseer Kralthax addressed the gathered elite. 500,000 years ago, we saved them. Galaxy from the human plague, his voice boomed across all channels. Today we honor that victory. Let all species know the price of challenging Zorelian dominance. Below, on Earth's surface, Alan, Laura, and the others watched from the sanctuary. Alongside Tegvarla and her followers, the past 2 days had been filled with tense discussions and shared information. The humans learned that Zorelian society was deeply divided over their shared history with humans. Kralthax's faction controls the official narrative, Tegvarla explained. They celebrate the purification and hide the truth that we carry human essence within us. My faction preserves the true history. Why haven't you challenged them publicly? Daniel asked. We are outnumbered, she replied simply. Until now. Alan's communicator beeped. It was Peter Jones from the fleet. Commander, we're in position. All ships ready. But Zorelian defenses are stronger than expected. If we attack, our losses will be heavy. Alan looked at his team, then at Tegvarla. He thought about the bunker's recordings, about Admiral Wright's true intentions, about the half-human Zorelians who protected humanity's legacy. There might be another way, he said finally. A way to end this without destroying what remains of humanity. In orbit, Kralthax's speech reached its climax. Let us renew our pledge to keep the galaxy safe from threats like the humans. Let us... His words cut off as every screen and communication channel suddenly changed. A human face appeared. Commander Alan Miller. People of the Zorelian Empire, Alan said calmly. I bring you greetings from humanity. Chaos erupted across the gathered fleet. Security officers tried to restore normal communications but failed. Kralthax roared in anger. This is impossible. Some trick. But Alan continued speaking, his message reaching every Zorelian ship. You believe humans were destroyed 500,000 years ago. You are wrong. We survived. Hidden. Waiting. Not for revenge as we first intended, but for truth. The screen split, showing both Alan and Admiral Wright's recording from the sanctuary. The Admiral's voice echoed across space. The war with the Zorelians. We started it. Humanity fired the first shot. In the command center of his flagship, Kralthax bellowed orders. Find the source of this transmission. Launch all fighters. But many Zorelian captains hesitated, watching the human broadcast with confusion and curiosity. On the Vengeance dawn, Olivia Martinez activated their final weapon. Not one of destruction, but one designed by Daniel to activate dormant, human neural pathways within Zorelian minds. A signal radiated outward, touching every Zorelian in the fleet. Across hundreds of ships, Zorelians suddenly experienced flashes of human emotion and memory. Not their own, but inherited from ancestors who had merged with humans long ago. For many, it was the first time these pathways had been fully active. Kralthax's ship launched fighters that headed toward Earth, but they were intercepted by vessels from Tegvarla's faction, which had been hiding in Earth's atmosphere. Two Zorelian forces engaged each other while human ships moved to protect Tegvarla's outnumbered fleet. All ships, defensive positions only, Alan ordered from the surface. Protect our allies but minimize casualties. The battle above Earth grew chaotic as Zorelian fought Zorelian, with human vessels in support of Tegvarla's faction. Some of Kralthax's ships began to stand down as the neural activation affected their crews, making them question the celebration they had come for. Suddenly, a massive energy beam cut through space, striking the Vengeance dawn. The ship's shields failed and fires erupted across multiple decks. Direct hit from Kralthax's flagship, Peter reported. Critical damage. We need to evacuate. On Earth, Alan received the distress call. Get everyone off the ship, he ordered. Get to the escape pods. He turned to Laura. We need to end this now before we lose everything. Together with Teg Varla, they rushed to a small craft that would take them to the surface near the largest Zorelian monument, a massive structure built over the ruins of what had once been a human city. As their craft approached, Kralthax's personal shuttle landed nearby. The Supreme Overseer emerged with a squad of elite guards, their weapons aimed at the approaching humans and rebel Zorelians. Traitors and ghosts, Kralthax snarled. Your deception ends here. No more deception, Alan replied. Only truth. He nodded to Daniel, who activated the sanctuary's final system. The ground beneath the monument trembled. The structure's base slid open, revealing a hidden chamber that had been waiting for 500,000 years. Inside was Admiral Wright's true legacy, not the fleet designed for revenge, but a genetic repository containing pure human DNA. The technology to create new humans, untainted by time or Zorelian influence. This is what your ancestors tried to destroy, Alan told Kralthax, and what some of your people helped preserve. Not just human genes, but human choice. Kralthax stared at the chamber in shock. What trickery is this? No trick, Tegvarla said. The birthplace has always been here, beneath your celebration monument. The humans who survived chose to merge with us, but they preserved their original form, in case a day came when both our peoples could live together. Above them, the battle was turning. More of Kralthax's ships stood down as the neural signal continued to work. Zorelians across the fleet experienced emotions they had suppressed for millennia. Curiosity about their human heritage, shame over the celebration, hope for a different future. Kralthax raised his weapon, aiming at Alan. I will not allow this. The purification must be complete. But his own guards hesitated, affected by the neural activation. Some lowered their weapons. Your empire is already changing, Alan said quietly. Look around you. Your people are remembering what you made them forget. That humanity is part of them. The Supreme Overseer fired, but Laura pushed Alan aside. The energy bolt struck her, in the shoulder. She fell to the ground as human and Zorelian forces converged, surrounding Kralthax and his remaining loyal guards. Within an hour, the fighting had ended. Kralthax was captured by his own people. Tegvarla's faction, strengthened by those who had changed sides, took control of the Earth Celebration fleet. In the sanctuary, Alan sat beside Laura, who was being treated for her wound. Around them, humans and Zorelians worked together, examining the genetic repository. What happens now? Laura asked weakly. We rebuild, Alan replied. Not just the fleet, not just Earth. We rebuild understanding. Grace approached them, excitement in her eyes. The systems are operational. We can use the genetic materials here to create new humans. Children born on Earth again after 500,000 years. Daniel joined them alongside Tegvarla. The Zorelian factions are negotiating. Tegvarla's people will remain here to help restore Earth. Others will carry the truth back to their worlds. Alan looked out at the barren landscape beyond the sanctuary entrance. Once it had been filled with human cities and farms, now it was alien and strange, but not forever. We came here for revenge, he said softly. We found something better. A future. 5 years later, Alan stood on a green hillside that had once been dead and brown. Around him, new plants grew. Earth species restored from preserved seeds. In the distance, a small settlement housed both humans and Zorelians. His body was aging rapidly now, the price of his long cryosleep, but he had lived to see the beginning of something remarkable. Tegvarla approached, carrying a small child. The baby had mostly human features, but with subtle Zorelian characteristics, a bridge between two species once locked in hatred. She is the first, Tegvarla said, handing the child to Alan. Born of both worlds. Alan looked down at the child, then up at the blue sky of Earth. The hidden fleet ships now served as homes and research centers, rather than weapons of war. The revenge they had planned for 500,000 years had transformed into renewal. Not the end, he whispered to the child. The beginning.